We good to go, folks?
Yes, we are now live.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Welcome to the June 21st regular council meeting. Before we get started tonight, I just wanted to pass on the mayor's regrets, and he wanted to let everyone know that he's enjoying his goddaughter's graduation and will be back in town this weekend. So at this point, I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask for any declarations of conflict from council. All right, seeing none. I'm at home unwell tonight, actually feeling better, but I've been sick all week, and it's very challenging to try and chair a meeting over Zoom. So I'd like to designate Councillor Toth to chair the meeting from this point forward. Procedurally, is there anything else we need to do, corporate officer?
Nope, that covers it. Thank you.
Thank you. Take it away, Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Rowe. This is also Indigenous Peoples Day, and so I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge that the district of Sechelt is located within the territory of the Sechelt Nation. So first up on our agenda is, of course, adoption of the agenda. Councillors, any changes to make to the agenda tonight? Councillor McLaughlin.
No, I would like to refer the 6.1 rezoning application 5535 Strunkworth Avenue to the committee of the whole next week.
Okay. Procedurally, I think. Well, but this is during adoption of the agenda, so I just want to check the corporate officer. Is it okay to refer something at this point?
Yes, that can be done in the same motion. However, a change to the items on the agenda will require a unanimous vote of council to pass.
Okay. Okay, I guess I will. First of all, is there a seconder for that motion? I don't see a seconder.
Come on.
Sorry, Councillor McLaughlin. Any other changes to the agenda to make for tonight? Seeing none, look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, please. Moved, seconded, all those in favor? Opposed?
Yeah, I'll be opposed.
Okay, thank you. That's carried. We have no delegations today, and we have no proclamations today. So we'll move straight into item 5.1, which is application to extend hours of liquor service for Brickers Cider Company at 6642 Norwest Bay Road. And I think we'll turn this over to Senior Development Planner Koberwitz for an intro.
Thank you, Chair Toth. This application is for a consideration to extend the hours of service at Brickers Cider, located at 6642 Norwest Bay Road. This is a referral from the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch, and the applicant, Brickers Cider Company, is seeking an extension of their opening hours or liquor service hours from 7 p.m. To 9 p.m. The LCRB requires that council consider the location of the establishment, the capacity and hours of liquor service of the establishment, as well as impacts of noise on the community in the vicinity of the establishment. And finally, the general impact on the community of this application if it is approved. Those are guidelines provided by the LCRB for council to consider. And those are within the recommendation. A notice was published in the June 2nd Coast Reporter, and notices were sent to all owners within 100 meters of the property. In total, we received 70 comments in support. Approximately 6 of those were located within 100 meters. And 3 comments were received that were opposed. 2 of those were received after agenda publication deadline. And all of those opposed were within 100 meters of the property. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the application if you like. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Council, any questions for Mr. Koberwitz? Councillor Rowe.
Thank you. Through you to staff. How many total properties are within 100 meters of the establishment? And I recognize that that's not a requirement, but I'm just curious.
Thank you.
Going off memory, I'm going to say it's about 12, but I can confirm that in a moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councillor McLaughlin, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, good chair. I'm just wondering, the compiled list, starting on page 12 of public comments received, were those compiled by the district or were they sent in some other way?
Yes, those are compiled by our administrative staff and they reflect the comments that were received by the district correctly. So the original comments are on file with the district.
Okay, it's, you know, I just think usually we have emails and then people's names and then maybe an address or something, so that this is all just into one long list is just kind of unusual for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm not sure if this is an operational question, probably more so. And I'm not sure if you're able to answer this, but it was more just around the music. And my question is, I just was questioning what the music piece is in terms of, is it background music? Is it amplified music at times? What days, what times, that kind of thing. So it was more of a question around that. And I'm not sure as to say if that can be answered here by you.
Thank you. Mr. Kobrowitz.
I can say that it may be a combination of amplified and acoustic music, but I believe the applicants may be in the gallery. So that
Okay.
might be a question best to pose to them directly.
Super, thank you.
Do we have the applicant here? Did you want to answer that? We can get you a microphone.
Hi, my name is Morgan Farah. I'm one of the co-owners of Bricker Cider. We have a combination of both background music and amplified music. Most of the time it is background music played to the speakers within the tasting room. On Wednesdays from 4:30 to 6:30, we have live acoustic music and the person's set up on the little patio. And we have two speakers kind of there behind them that play out to the people sitting in the garden. It's always conversational volumes. We don't want it to be loud. We want people to still be able to sit at the tables and enjoy a conversation with people that they're visiting or they're with, not so loud that they can't talk amongst one another. Occasionally on the weekends, like this Sunday, for example, it's our 6th birthday. We have music on Sunday for 2 to 3 hours, but that's once in a while. It's not a set schedule like the Wednesdays.
Okay,
And that's
so
it for music.
Wednesday's the set schedule and the other is mainly just around special events.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Councillor Inkster. No, sorry, Councillor Inkster. We've received the correspondence. They're the applicant, so they have the ability procedurally to speak. Councillor Inkster.
Just a couple of questions. I'm glad the proponents are here. And although Mr. Kobrowitz might be able to answer it, is there some buffering within the property itself based on the fact that they are a fairly they're hosting people within a residential area. So, but it's had a number of years of blending into neighbor and some success. So I'm wondering if they've built buffering into their plan going forward. And I'm wondering if the music plays back towards the business itself rather than out. It's just a couple of structural questions that I would ask of the proponents, just considering the neighborhood that's around them and their business plan. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if Mr. Kobrowitz, if you know the answer to that, otherwise.
I can only answer that question from having been on site and looked at the premises, but as far as buffering, there are buffering requirements in the agricultural land reserve for adjacent to residential areas, but all of the surrounding properties are within the agricultural land reserve. So there would be no buffering requirement between agricultural uses. As far as the music does play out into the orchard area, into the service area, away from the building, and buffering that's there mainly consists of vegetation to the east There's some trellises and some plantings there. A fence, and on the other side is the farm operation building. It's a fairly large property, so
Yeah.
you know, a strict sense of buffering isn't really in place.
Okay. I've been there a couple of times, so I was just, in terms of this application and the increased hours, I'm just was asking, I think there is some building buffering. I was just trying to get a picture, and I thought staff or the proponent may speak to that. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe, I see your hand up.
Yes, thanks. Through you to staff, would it be fair to say that they would still have to comply with within our noise bylaw? And which actually goes later than what they're requesting? This isn't anything separate than what would be required under the noise bylaw, correct?
Yes, the noise bylaw would apply. It is set up to be somewhat subjective in that it would apply for noise that is outside the norm of a business operating in that sense. It does go until 11 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Shepherd.
Just to point out to council, I don't believe the noise bylaw that the town or the district has any sort of decibel level during normal operating hours up till 11 o'clock. So it's a fairly vague thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you through the chair to staff. I don't know if the noise bylaw allows electric projection of music in a residential area. I don't believe it does. Also, I'm just wondering if there's any other place in the district that has a residential use that allows this kind of use, a tasting room that serves glasses of cider, beer, and also a full food complement from a local restaurant. Is there any other place that does this?
Within sort of a residential.
Within a residential area?
I would point out that this area is zoned agriculture. It is within the agricultural land reserve. It's not considered traditional residential rural zone. In the district of Sechelt, we don't have a similar operation as Brickers, but you would find similar zoning and land use in other areas of the ALR on the Sunshine Coast, up and down Reed Road at cideries in area E, as well as Sunday Cider, for example, Persephone. Those operations operate under the same land use regulations.
Follow-up? Give a follow-up, Councillor McLaughlin.
I was just wondering, is the cider actually made on the property from apples that are grown there?
I think that's outside the purview of the decision we're looking at today.
Mm.
It would have been part of their original licensing. for the
Well,
property.
yeah, I just wonder if anything had changed.
Yeah, Director Allen.
Thank you. Mr. Kovowitz has mentioned this, but just want to discover this a little bit more. So these properties are agricultural land reserve. Agriculture's priority use as recognized by the province and Agricultural Land Commission. Cideries, breweries, meaderies, distilleries, etc., known as alcohol production facility in the current regulations are permitted. There are requirements to grow product on site and so forth. That's primarily monitored through either the Ministry of Agriculture and or the Agricultural Land Commission. That is related but separate to the discussion at hand here. So at present, as endorsed by the Agricultural Land Commission and the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch, there's a lawful operation on site. It's permitted. And so this question here is, does the District of Sechelt Council support extending the liquor license hours by 2 hours while the province makes their decision on that? And that's specifically what's at hand here. But this use of a cidery is permitted within this property and agricultural land reserve and our ag zone within zoning bylaw 580. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, there are a number of other types of businesses like this on the Sunshine Coast, as we all know, located in or near residential areas. And I believe Persephone's, the complaints that they had, if they had any, was mostly parking. There was parking issues. So There are some local examples of businesses such as this that sort of blended into the residential areas they were in. It's just all about, as I mentioned, just making sure that the music is concentrated on site is the only thing I would say. But they work within the residential areas and they have worked. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
To the chair, I'm just wondering, I'm generally in support of extending the hours, but I wonder if in making that decision, we could ask the applicant to not have live music being played past 8 p.m. as a method of sort of dampening sound. So we're divorcing the hours of operation from music or entertainment.
Noise issues. Thank you. I don't know if, is that something that's within the purview that we could pass tonight, Director Allen?
Pardon me, Mr. Chair, yes, it would be. It's up to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch to make their decision, but we can say in our dealings with them over the years, they do quite heavily rely upon local government, municipal council to provide direction for them. And so we can't promise that's the outcome tonight, but it's worth a shot.
Thank you. I know personally, I'm a little hesitant to support 9 p.m. I actually like the idea of 8 p.m., sort of a meet in the middle approach. But you know, it's up to anybody who wants to make some recommendations tonight. I see a couple microphones on down here.
Oh, sorry.
You guys are good? Okay. Councillor Shepherd.
I'm willing to make a recommendation then that we support recommendations 1 and 2 with an amendment to item number 2 so that the service hours are from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? I will second that. Okay. Any other discussion on this motion? Councillor Rowe.
Just for clarity, you're suggesting the actual service hours go till 8, not the service hours remain till 9, but no music past 8?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So the recommendations would be as presented on page 4, except instead of 9 p.m., it would say 8 p.m. Yeah. Any other comments? Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, through the chair. Well, I'm just thinking about this location, the proximity to a school, the nature of the size of the lots, the quality of the type of neighborhood not being along a highway, for instance. So I'm generally not in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Inkster?
I had thought that Councillor Shepherd was just limiting the music within the license, not the license. This is an hour difference. They're asking for, I mean, it's 50% reduction, even though it's only an hour, right? So it's just, it's a difficult one. I was kind of okay with 9. You can't, sure. I was kind of okay with 9. But I understand the music issue in the residential neighborhood. And I was trying to go through the report to determine whether the proponent talked about music, that was part of their plan, or was it just a business that wanted to stay open until 9, especially when the weather's nicer, gives them that choice. So that's kind of where I was a little bit confused on, Chair, is that I'm okay with the sound thing to maybe placate some of those concerned in the neighborhood, but I think 9 p.m. is an okay time. Yeah.
Councillor
Yeah,
Bell.
so I'm gonna go back here and just say that I'm supporting the original recommendation for three reasons. I think economic sustainability, there is small business, it's key to our tourism. And it's a place where families and dogs are invited to come together and enjoy time together it really creates a healthy community. And I think at this point, there's strong evidence that the neighbors have been highly communicative and supportive and trying to talk to the neighbors. So I'm hopeful that will continue. That form of respect will continue. Now, having said that, I am supportive to 9 o'clock, but I would like to consider the music thing as well, to maybe go to 8.
Thank you.
As amended.
Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, I just want to make myself clear is that I'm in support of the original recommendations as well. I think there are a few places that we have that people can gather like they do at Brickers. And you know, what they've failed to mention on Wednesday when they're having music, and you know, the co-owner can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's also a market up there. And so they're bringing a lot to our community, not to just West Sechelt, but to Sechelt as well. So I'm in support of the original recommendations. I would be amenable to if there was some way to deal with the music till 8 o'clock, but I mean, lots of people, they're just getting there and after work, and it's time to go. And they've built a great business there, and I'd like to support it as long as they keep being great community partners, which they have been, hosting many fundraisers and stuff over the years. So I'd be willing to look at the music piece, but I support the original recommendations till 9. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, one way that we could go forward with this, as it's on the floor currently, would be to amend it to add, it would say to 8 PM for music with operating hours to 9 PM. If somebody would like to make that amendment. Would you like to make that amendment?
I will.
I'm suggesting wording if somebody would like to make an
Yeah,
amendment. to the
I
motion on the
can
floor.
go with that wording, although I thought the introducer of the original motion could just accept what you had said as a friendly amendment.
I want to keep it procedural, so if
Okay.
you would like to make that amendment. to the
Sure,
motion on
I'll
the
make
floor.
that amendment to, I believe it was Councillor Shepherd's original motion.
Okay. And do I have a seconder for that? Thank you. I have a seconder for that. So we've got an amendment on the floor. Any discussion of the amendment? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the amendment? Those opposed? And the amendment is carried. So Councillor McLaughlin and myself opposed. So now we're dealing with the recommendations as amended. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, I will call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Councillor McLaughlin, motion's carried. Okay, thank you very much. So that's it for that item. So moving on to item 5.2 in our agenda. We have 2023 Union of BC Municipalities Convention Minister Meeting requests. I will admit that I wasn't here last week and I didn't watch the video, so I didn't know what you guys talked about. I don't know if our corporate officer wanted to say anything to introduce, or we're just going to jump straight into discussion on our meeting request subjects.
There we go. Sorry about that. Certainly, if council would be interested in just a brief recap of where we're at as far as the topic on the agenda here tonight. So the Union of BC Municipalities Convention happens in September, and during that time, there's the opportunity to meet with provincial cabinet ministers. So staff are looking for a resolution to direct staff to submit the meeting requests for these meetings. And with the idea being that the councillors who attend those meetings would address some specific topics that they would like to bring up with those ministers. The committee of the whole meeting last week was a general discussion on topics that might be brought forward for ministerial meetings. And the recommendation for council tonight was a list of the ministries that would be of interest for council to meet with. And that is the recommendation on the floor.
Thank you very much. I know that I made a few notes on this list because I think in terms of minister meetings, this list is too long. I think between the sessions and resolutions and everything else going on at UBCM, I think the list is too long, and we need to think about when we're meeting with ministers, we're looking at policy items that they can affect. So when, looking at the list here on page 43, when we talk about something like highway sweeping, that's something that's really better handled at an operational level, staff to staff. BC Ferries, I know we've talked to ministers in the past about BC Ferries. And I know that at the time, they basically indicated to us that they were looking to negotiate a new performance term for BC Ferries. But that outside of those performance term changes, they don't really make changes to the operating contract for BC Ferries. So I don't know if, a meeting about BC Ferries would actually have any effect. And then when we look at, just from my notes, looking at the Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship, we do have a motion going to UBCM. And I'm pretty sure the regional district is going to be taking the lead, or should be taking the lead, on provincial water licensing. So I think it'd be good of us to support them in that front, but I don't know that we need to have our own meeting. I have some other comments, but maybe I'll hold there and see if councillors have other comments to make. Councillor Rowe?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Certainly, I don't think, well, just speaking for myself, but I don't think we thought last week that anything other than partnering with the SCRD as far as the water goes. For me, the three that are taught for what I'm seeing are the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions, around the, mental health and addictions and lack of resources on the Sunshine Coast, Ministry of Health around seniors care, and I think there may be an ask around policy work with recruiting physicians if I look out a month from now. So I think it might be good to get an invite in there, and then childcare. Those were my three. I agree. Obviously, that list is long, and I think if we can narrow it down to, four-ish, then we can also join in the SCRD on any meetings that are of relevance to us as well. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Inkster?
Yeah, I like getting as many meetings as we can, to be honest, and presenting well. And I think this council's does their homework and speaks well. And I would love to see as many meetings with the ministries as we can. I know that you've spoken to a number of them that you don't see us being effective at, but if we have good briefing notes, we present well, we get the provincial ministries and the ministers to know that Seashelt's serious about our community's issues, whichever ones we present to them. So I understand that there's some that see our time better spent with less meetings, but I would propose that we can a number of different meetings with them. Even the highway sweeping one, if we went staff to staff, staff will ask, can you sweep the highways more? Track will say, thank you for asking them again, but we've asked them 10 times and it's dangerous. So do we need to speak to a minister about the unsafe sides of our highways to get them to talk to the contractor and or look at the contract again to make it safer for, I mean, we have a number of bicycle paths within Seashelt, and yet the highways is very unsafe to get those cyclists there. So there's an example of sometimes we need to go higher in the hierarchy in order to talk to the ferries. I know that there's some that think that transportation, we won't get a ferry for a while, but I think it's important that we go remind the government that we have overcapacity every summer and issues with people that work in Vancouver trying to get back and forth to their families. And we have to remind them of that. I know other council members, they want to see their time better spent, and you've said that. But I think the more we talk to them and the more we put ourselves on the government of British Columbia's radar, the more they'll look at Seashelt and take us seriously. Thanks.
Thank you for those comments. I note specifically with BC Ferries, We did sit down with the Minister of Transportation 2 years ago now, I think. And yeah, they said in no uncertain terms that they renegotiate the performance term during the performance term. So I don't know if it's something that would be worth going to them this year, or maybe in 2 years' time, a little closer to the renewal of the performance term, so that we can have some more input into the next contract. Just my thoughts, Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Again, just trying to, through the chair, actually to the chair, understanding the process, since this is my first time hearing that there is sort of not a lot of time to have the meetings. So which makes me think that we maybe should look at prioritizing. I'm also hearing that we could write letters as well. So we still can get on the radar through the letter writing process. So it doesn't have to fall off the page. I think my concern is that if we don't do the priorities and we don't get a meeting, that's prime time. And I would really like to make use of that prime time. So we're ready. We know what our priorities are as a group. We've got some strong action and ask. And then we look at the letter writing as part of it. Like I'd like to see in the future that we have a complete advocacy plan. You know, how many, let's write letters X amount of times, and who's going to write the letters? I mean, I'm getting off base, but I think that's part of this process.
And I think developing a sort of advocacy plan, as you put it, I think that's something that'll dovetail nicely into the strategic planning,
Yes.
which we're meeting again next
Right
week.
on.
So,
Yeah.
you know, but when I look at something like number 7, Ministry of Forests, we're closing the logging roads during the wildfire season. By the time we go to UBCM, it's the middle of September. You know, if we want to talk to them about closing the logging roads during wildfire season, we need to talk to them today. Councillor Shepherd.
To the chair, I agree with your point about Ministry of Forests. However, we are in the middle of a long letter writing campaign with Ministry of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation. You know, as Council Bell's mentioned, I think it's time or I would like to see that added to the list. Because I think it's only FaceTime that's going to advance those projects. Thank you.
Thank you. And in fact, when I looked at that list, Murr was the only other one that I felt really strongly about, the ones that Councillor Rowe mentioned. So Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, not much more to say. It's usually 10 minutes each meeting, very quick. You can do 4 in an hour if you're organized and if we've timed it properly, because that's where we go set up. So you can do 4. And just by the timing, because you arrange with the ministry, the main ministry, the municipal ministry, they can arrange the meetings to work for you. So, yeah.
That's news here. No, they tell you a time. At
Well,
least
they
have the last 4
do,
years.
but if they don't talk to each other, then there's a clash because there's a central booking source. I've never seen meetings contradict each other is all I'm saying. Yeah.
You're right. Meetings don't usually contradict each other, but what'll happen is if you've got an hour and a half long policy session, you'll end up with a minister meeting right in the middle of it. So then you can't attend any of the policy session. So Councillor Rowe.
Oh, I got lost for a minute there. I think I had Murr on my joint meeting list with the SCRD. So that's where I was with in my head with that. And the other one that I forgot actually was Ministry of Housing. I'm sure that we're gonna, or a discussion with BC Housing, or no, it's probably Minister of Housing about BC Housing. I'm not sure, but Minister of Housing's going to be in there as well. And so just through you to Councillor Inkster, I've heard some great discussion, but just to be clear then, what are you wanting to apply to all the ministries? Because I haven't heard you say, other than BC Ferries and Modi, like, are there specific ones you want to make sure are on the list? Because I'm not really hearing that in the conversation.
Councillor Inkster.
BC Housing through the ministry, if that's Ministry of Housing, I'm not sure what ministry that is. We can figure that out. Mental health, as you mentioned, transportation, which ministry handles the childcare issue? Which ministry is that? Is that
Ministry
MCF?
of Education and Childcare.
Ministry of Education and Childcare. Over the number of years that I've been here too long, they've changed ministry names and
Yeah.
things like that. That's four. That's four that I can think of off the top of my head, but we did have a number of other issues. So in answer to Councillor Rowe, what she's asking me is I can pick four. But you'd have one or two issues per discussion, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you through the chair. I brought some of these items forward, but I think it's important to focus on our residents and look at the particular aspects of our population and what the issues are. For instance, ferries are a big issue, and I brought up this idea of the L route, Nanaimo, Langdell. It seems like that might be a good way to get some people off some of the other ferries, if we could get that route. I don't know much about it, but the L route. Perhaps even have a passenger ferry in the summer between Nanaimo and Langdell, or from downtown Sechelt, just to do something different and get something happening with BC ferries. Also, we're very short on housing and care for seniors, especially seniors in need. And it's the biggest part of our population by far, and it's growing. So we're getting older. So I'd really like to see a focus on that, because I've gone to a number of meetings and it seems like I'm hearing that loud and clear. Also mental health. I think the idea is we're not going to build a lot of mental health systems, perhaps, but we really do need to get those wraparound services for the populations that we want to serve right away. And so we really have to try and nail that down. Ministry of Housing. Well, I don't really like promoting housing with the water issue, but if we are going to provide any housing, it really needs for people that really need it. And we also have to have water, guaranteed water for those types of approaches. So I don't want to get into a big talk about housing generally and infill generally and all the issues throughout the province elsewhere. Our issues are quite unique here. So that's my 2 bits on that. Thank you.
Thank you. So the list that I see is we'd like to have meetings with MOTI, Ministry of Housing, whatever they're called this week, Ministry of Housing, Mental Health and Addictions, Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education and Childcare, and MER. Are there any others? Like we can flesh out topics, we can flesh out the briefing notes. You know, as we go, staff just need to know that these are the ministries that we want to talk to. So I guess with that in mind, is there anybody else that we feel critically that we need to meet with? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So I would ask for a motion that the following 2023 UBCM Convention Ministerial Meeting requests be submitted. And that would be Ministry of Transportation, Ministry of Housing, Mental Health and Addictions, Health, Education and Childcare, and MER. And recommendation 2 that the town of Gibson's SCRD and Sechelt Nation be invited to attend our meetings. Moved. Thank you. Seconded. Don't see any hands up or anybody reaching for a microphone. So all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on in our agenda to item 5.3, which is the 2022 Statement of Financial Information. And I think we're turning this over to Katie.
Thank you and good evening. The purpose of this presentation is to have council consider and approve the district's 2022 Statement of Financial Information, or SOFI for short. Each year, the district is required to file financial information under the provisions of the Financial Information Act within 6 months of year end. This reporting includes schedules for employee and elected officials' salaries and expenses, severance agreements, payments to suppliers for goods and services, and guarantee and indemnity agreements. Thank you, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Short and to the point. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for that. If I can just get you to stop the screen share. Council, any questions for our staff? If not, would somebody like to make some recommendations on page 45 of the agenda package? Councillor Shepherd?
I don't think I put on my hand, but yes, I'll move that the District of Sechelt adopt the 2022 Statement of Financial Information, be approved for submission to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and two, that the Mayor and Director of Finance be authorized to sign the 2022 Statement of Financial Information approval form.
Great, thank you very much. And I see that seconded. Any other discussion from council? Not? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to item 5.4 in the agenda. Turn this over to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Chair Toth. The report describes the recommendation for this evening to officially appoint the Deputy Corporate Officer in her official capacity.
Great. I wish that she was here for us to congratulate, but I'm happy to move that recommendation on page 56 that Tracy Forster be appointed Deputy Corporate Officer for the District of Sechelt. And I've got a seconder for that. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much and congratulations, Tracy. That's right, Director Inkster, or Councillor Inkster. You're going to have to be our executive assistant until we can find somebody. Moving on to item 5.5 in the agenda, which is notice on title for contravention of building bylaw at 5558 Wakefield Road. We'll turn this over to Mr. Nias, our chief building official.
Thank you very much, Chairman Toth. I have nothing really to add except that as of the start of this meeting, we have not yet received the required building permit for the alterations to this property.
Okay, thank you very much for that brief introduction. I believe that I'm required to provide the property owner or their agent the ability to speak at this meeting if they're in the gallery. So if they're in the gallery and would like to speak, I guess not. Council, what is your wish? Councillor Bell.
That we deny the request for authorization. Which,
We're on page 58.
58, right?
Yep. The recommendation to file notice in the land title office.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I was down under options. I'll go back to the top. I motion that the council direct corporate officer to file notice in the land title office in accordance with section 57 of the community charter against 5558 Wakefield Road, Lot B, Block 11, DL 1310, Plan 14976.
Great, thank you very much. And I've got a seconder for that. Any other discussion on the motion? Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, through the chair, by way of just some background information. So notice is on title, but does that mean we keep pursuing this or do we just leave the notice on title and that's it? Does that affect that, for instance, the saleability of the property, et cetera?
Great
Thank you.
question. Mr. Nias.
Very good question, Councillor. The intent is to put notice on title so that any future owners will be aware that there is a contravention of the district building bylaw. Hence a red flag. And should the property be sold, it would be the conveying lawyer's responsibility or the notary to point that out to the purchaser and give them the option to proceed or not to. In the case where we have an egregious life safety violation, I would recommend to council that we would pursue injunctive proceedings in court to compel an owner to alleviate that particular situation. We haven't come across that yet in my tenure as chief building official here, but that's always an option available to us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I don't see any other hands up, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. All right, moving on in our agenda to item 6.1A, which is a rezoning application for 109 apartment units in 2 buildings at 5535 Shorncliffe Avenue, Genaris. And I believe we're turning this back over to our senior development planner for an update.
Thank you, Chair Toth. As noted, this is a rezoning application for consideration of second reading for the proposed 2-building multi-unit apartment complex at 5535 Shorncliffe Avenue. This application was previously considered by council on September 7th, 2022 for permission to proceed. Then first reading was provided on April 19th, 2023, where council gave direction for another public information meeting to be hosted. That meeting was held on June 12th, 2023 at the Seashell Aquatic Center. A total of 3 people attended the public information meeting, and 2 of them left comments which are included in the attachments to the staff report. There are 2 changes from first reading in the attached bylaws. That includes the inclusion of residential tenure zoning on the property, which would apply to all of the units, except for 1 unit on the top floor of the western building, which is the penthouse unit on the upper floor that would be permitted to be utilized for STR of that unit only. Referral comments were also received and are included in the report for your reference. And the next steps in this application would be for council to provide direction to schedule a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kobrowitz. Just before I go to council for questions, I'm going to jump the queue here. When the inclusion of the penthouse suite being added in as a short-term rental, I notice here that staff are recommending to move forward with that sort of amendment. If we choose not to move forward with that short-term rental component tonight, would you recommend that we refer this back to staff for a little more, or could we remove that and then proceed tonight? Maybe that's a question for the corporate officer.
I may defer to the corporate officer on this, but certainly if it's just the exclusion of 1 provision, that's certainly an amendment that we can likely accommodate tonight. But I believe the applicant is in the audience as well, and council may want to see if they'd be willing to proceed with such an amendment.
Okay, thank you. All right, council, any questions for Mr. Kobrowitz? Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I wonder if planning could give me some background on the steep slopes of the site and how that relates to the OCP.
In regards to?
In regards to this project generally, and also the density of the project, the height of the project, and for instance, the amount of infill or fill, blasting, cutting required to accommodate these buildings on a steep slope.
Sure, I can speak to that more generally in the sense of our development permit area 5 for steep slopes that do affect the property. It is noted that in general, development of steep slopes should be avoided when possible. However, it may be considered where it can be demonstrated that development can be done safely and with the mitigated impact to the surrounding area and the property. So some of the background, and especially when it speaks to lower densities, I know that when this development permit area was introduced, it was in response to single family development that occurred in the Clayton lands and the West Seashell area on those steep slopes that resulted in significantly sized retaining walls being required to stabilize those properties. Whether this development permit area was specifically oriented for infill apartment building density on slopes that can accommodate safe development, that would be something for council to consider, whether the relevancy of that. But DPA 5 certainly doesn't close the door, so to speak, on appropriate development in steep slope areas. As far as this particular project is concerned, there is a geotechnical report provided that has been received that indicates that it is safe to do so on this particular slope.
Just to follow up on that, is DPA 5 one that has delegated authority, or is that one that has to come to council for approval?
For development at this scale, it would come to council for approval.
So we would still see that.
Right, if I could just follow up on that.
Yep.
So you're saying that the OCP does not prohibit this development in this location, being that it's not a low to medium density development?
The guideline that you're likely referring to is guideline 2 and 3 in DPA 5. And so it speaks to that land that over 30% in grade should generally be avoided. It goes on to say that development may be considered where certain conditions are met. So I would not describe that as a prohibition on all development on grades steeper than 30%. It certainly depends on site specific conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Counselor Bell.
I'm just wondering about the referral comments. I don't, I'm just wondering, let me just back up to my notes here. I noticed that some of the stakeholders had raised some concerns in the referral comments, and just wondering how these get factored into the application process.
I can answer that. I think most of the concerns from stakeholders resulted around the configuration of Shorncliffe Avenue and the access to this property. Shorncliffe undoubtedly requires upgrades to accommodate this development, and there's ongoing conversations and review of how that access would be configured, but it would be done through the servicing agreement to the engineering standards that are required to ensure safe access, and that would include pedestrian safety for access to the school and up to the high school. In consideration for parking in those areas in front of Shorncliffe as well, and Rockwood, I should say.
Okay, excellent. And then one more question. I noticed that there was to be a report from the Shishal Nation, and it's not included in this report, or did I miss it?
Yeah, we have not received comprehensive comments at this time, although the comments that we do get tend to be fairly similar to each other. So there is some heads up that we can give the applicant of what they should expect, but they're generally mostly relevant to the time of development, particularly when site alteration and archaeological impacts are considered.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I would like to take, Counselor Inkster, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to be really interested in what we do with the access. I mentioned that with a couple other proposals. It's this road access to this proposal is very close to this building. We all know it's right there. We all know the tight access onto that road and the width of the road and the fact that there are children there. So we need to proceed with caution with how we plan the access, and hopefully there's another access proposal there, another access plan. It's just, we need to be really careful. I wanted to ask through you to staff and I always ask these questions, and I council always says this is, we don't talk about that much, but form and character. Is this the building? Is this how it's going to look? These plans here, is that just, this is how it's going to be shaped?
Preliminarily, I think that this is how it's going to be shaped. Form and character development permit would be still forthcoming. Is that generally correct?
No, that's right. A development permit would be required prior to building permit issuance, and that would be for council consideration of the more detailed form and character of the building. At this stage in the rezoning, we're proofing out the level of density and the land use on the property.
Yeah.
And certainly this envelope is what the developer is currently contemplating. But securing the exact building form is really not something that you can do through a development permit, because as we know, they can lapse, they can expire. New applications can come forward utilizing the zoning that gets put in place. So I would say that this is certainly a preliminary proposal of the building location and the general size that is currently being proposed.
Okay. Thanks through you to Mr. Kovrovitz. I want to see different kinds of housing and some rental opportunities in the downtown core. And I'm okay with the density based on that, based on the fact that it's in the downtown core. But I will say that if the plan comes forward, because I'm hearing through Mr. Kovrovitz that we will have some say that if it looks like that, when it comes forward to us, that the building looks like that, that I will not be supportive. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
We just need to have buildings that, yeah, I turned it off and I'm speaking again. We just need to be, in my mind, proud of the buildings that we say yes to, that our citizens live in. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you to the chair. Just a bit of a follow-up. I'm just looking at the OCP page 173. So if planning can confirm that the submission requirements listed there, 5A to J have been met. And also I noticed that it says that it should be developed at a lower density, and this is quite a high density for us. Also that specific site planning techniques could be applied. So I'm wondering if you could just detail a bit more for me if that's been met and what those special specific site planning techniques are.
I believe the applicant spoke to some of the site-specific techniques back at first reading, but I will defer to Mr. Allen.
Thank you. Page 173 of the official community plan is the development permit. And there is development permit area 5 for steep slopes, as well as the form and character development permit, both to come. So we're not there yet. We're talking about should this property, which has a mixed multi-family designation in the OCP, see a slightly increased density to allow these 2 buildings for rentals. We're going to get there, assuming the rezoning is passed, but simply not there yet. This is future content.
Thank you. Councilor Shepherd.
I'm going to speak in support of the motions, in support of the density, because of the type of units that are being proposed. I'll echo my comments from the last time this came up. We are desperately short of rental units. So I'm supportive of this, actually, except for recommendation 5. I don't know why this is going to another public hearing. It's the proponent has shown the project in general nature just at Christmas time. Much of this council actually saw it at the time.
That's separate from the public hearing. The public hearing is the statutory process that we have to go through when we're dealing with zoning bylaw
I
and
stand
OCP
corrected.
changes. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Rowe.
Hi, my attention span is short tonight. Through you to staff. So if we move this ahead and allow this type 3 short-term rental, which would be, I guess, the only legal non-TUP type 3 short-term rental in the district of Sechelt, which weighs on me a little bit considering the process that we've gone through with other type 3 STRs. I guess what we're saying though, because I'm really in support of the rental zoning for sure. So I guess we would be setting a precedent though, if some other developer wanted to come to town and build 109 units of rental zoning with 11 at affordable housing or affordable below market rentals, that they too could have a short-term rental on the top of their building. Essentially, I'm saying we would be setting a precedent. Yes? Just for comment from staff.
Kobrowitz.
If Director Allen wants to add anything, I would just say that council is not bound by precedent. It is certainly in this application, it may be considered appropriate, given the need for rental at this time. It may be a package that council feels comfortable supporting this with, but it in no way would force council to decide that that is a precedent that they must abide by. It's
Okay, thank you
not
very much.
something council needs to follow. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you. I'd actually like to take a moment here to invite the applicant up to the table to talk about a little bit about the addition of the short-term rental type 3. Yeah, I think we've all got some questions around that.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys giving me the time to speak. So with respect to the short-term rental, that by no means is to be honest, that by no means is a make or break for us. If we're not allowed to, that's fine. The only thing is that, for us, this, this property, we're providing rental as a family, as a company, we're providing rental, and that unit up top. We are going to keep that unit. So that's going to be our unit that we as a family come, like even when we're doing maintenance or whatever we're doing, we have to keep a place to stay. That's going to be our family's unit. That unit is not going to be rented out. It's going to be my family's unit. And the only reason we're proposing the short term is that it's just a shame for it to sit empty while we're not using it. That's all there is to it. There's nothing more to it than that. You guys can see the way, it's unfortunate the plan, because, with respect to development permit and all that kind of stuff, we've submitted the plans a long time ago. The plans are with the city. For some reason, council hasn't seen them yet. The building looks beautiful. We've, that's just massing. The building looks beautiful. And as you said, Councillor, we also want to be proud of the buildings that we make, and any feedback that we receive from council with respect to form and character, we are going to take that feedback and make the building beautiful. We want to stand behind it. With respect to the short-term rental, my only thought is that even the way the unit's designed, like we have a family member that's paraplegic. So the way we've designed the unit as well is that it is fully accessible. So that unit is very designed for my family's need. So we are going to use that unit. In terms of rental, that may be my personal rental if it goes that way. But with respect to short-term rental, it's just one of those things where if that unit's sitting empty half of the year or more, it's just such a waste. That's my only thoughts behind it.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions for the applicant about the short-term rental component while we have them sitting here? No? Councillor Rowe.
Sorry, late to the draw. So just to be clear, so in a situation where it's empty for 6 months, then are you saying you might possibly rent it out, but to one person as opposed to a rotating population of tourists?
No, but by 6 months, I don't mean 6 consecutive months. I just mean that, in the times that we
Oh, I
aren't
see.
using it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions about the short-term rental component. Oh, no? Okay. Councillor McLaughlin, you've been very patient. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, was there a housing agreement being pursued for this? I haven't heard about that. I think it's important. And also I was wondering if it's possible, since there is quite a bit of blasting involved, if we could require a study of the foundations and inspection of the current foundations of the buildings in the vicinity, a beautiful heritage church, which is very precious to the community, a school, Rockwood Center.
Yep.
I would want to see that done and then reevaluate it after the buildings are built. Thank
So
you.
I'll touch on the housing agreement in that it's recommendation number 4 here on page 60. With regards to the blasting, I'll let the applicant speak because I believe they said previously they weren't planning to blast.
So basically we're doing minimal we're doing cut and fill, trying to maintain grades as natural as possible. We've tried to avoid bedrock. There are areas where bedrock is going to be encountered. And in those areas, what we typically do is we do a pre-construction survey of all the buildings surrounding, and we also do vibration monitoring during any blasts. And the vibration monitoring is set up a lot farther, the vibration monitoring is set up close to the site as well as progressively going farther away. So what that does is that there, in terms of vibration monitoring, there's thresholds. So we try that even the monitors that are close to our site do not hit those thresholds. So even if we're getting remotely close to those thresholds, that means that, okay, it's time to dial it back. But again, those thresholds and that testing happens very close to the site such that, by the time it goes farther away, the impacts are even less. So again, there will be pre-construction surveys, detailed ones, and we hire engineers and surveyors that come do those. And then, during the pre-construction surveys, inevitably you will find pre-existing cracks and all that kind of stuff. So what we typically do is we end up putting crack monitors and tensometers along those cracks. To essentially every aspect of it is monitored. And then with respect to vibration monitoring itself, that's done through geotechnical engineers. It will be done, in a certified manner. So it's not me out there doing it, but it is all. I am a geotechnical engineer, by the way, but it's not me out there doing it, but it's done thoroughly through certified professionals.
Great, thank you. Okay, Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're also more concerned about how the building sits on the slope afterwards though as well, right? I think in terms of site preparation and that as well on the side slope, right? But the STR issue, I mean, I know you weren't, the proponent wasn't necessarily, that wasn't a make or break. I just would wonder why, I'm assuming you'd be here during the summer. That's when a lot of people like to be here a lot, that why you wouldn't maybe offer that up to people that come here that need a place to rent, like people in the medical system or education as an example. I mean, that's something, STR is a big issue in this community right now. And I'm not sure if you're aware of that. You're probably just,
No,
Yeah.
I've been to the meeting.
yeah,
so-
you've heard it.
Yeah.
You've heard it. It's a touchy subject. So I would be more amenable to that kind of proposal. Those that are in those industries that I mentioned, they pay a lot of rent. So, there's some income pieces there that are quite, lucrative.
We've dealt with
Yeah.
rental buildings in the past, and one of the issues that we have is you cannot sometimes it becomes a challenge to actually you may have a tenant that overstays their welcome, and if that situation ever occurs, you can't there's nothing you can do about it. And then the other thing is that even now, even now we find ourselves coming to Sunshine Coast once every other month, so to speak. And when we have, and not just Sunshine Coast, we have rental sites in the Okanagan, and in some instances, I'm driving there once a week or once every 2 weeks. So we, as a company and as a family, we're very hands-on. So if we have a property here, we are going to be very hands-on. So, and we are going to be part of the community. So that being said, it's not going to be that we're only here for summer months. It's likely going to be that we're here every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, so to speak. So it is going to be regular. I mean, with respect to the building itself, it's one of those things where when we look at the feasibility of a rental building, it strictly comes down to, what the rental building is worth, strictly based on rental. The rental building's worth is determined strictly on rental and your operating expense. And when CMHC decides whether or not they're going to support this, the numbers have to work. So with that, so if we are essentially that top unit we're building up there, with that, the numbers probably won't work. So we are essentially going to finance that or construct that ourselves. That's going to be our family home essentially.
Thank you. Okay. I think Councillor Shepherd, you have your hand up.
I do. I just want to flail away at the point of the public hearing one more time. If I could just direct a question to the head of planning through the chair. Does municipal council not have the right to bypass a public hearing in a rezoning? Thank you.
Director Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In this particular case, we're amending the official community plan because of the density increase request. It's going to remain in the mixed multifamily designation, but we have to amend the OCP to accommodate it. Therefore, a public hearing is obligatory. To economize, what we've done in the past is have them at 6 or 6:30 prior to council meeting. I mean, to economize your time, but it still takes time in the process. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Okay. Just want to have a general comment as well, that we still have a water issue. We don't have guaranteed water. With so many existing units proposed already in the hopper in the planning department's list of projects. I think if we want to get rental back, we should not be allowing so many unlimited STRs. That's where a lot of our affordable rental went and is. We could get it back. And I think we should save this site as a precinct and a low density project, especially since we don't really know what's going to happen with Shorncliffe. There might be opportunities that we're losing by going ahead with this. And I would encourage this project to come forward again in 2 or 3 years when we know more about these things. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comments. I don't see any other hands up. We do have some recommendations on page 60 that council may or may not be interested in at this time. Councillor Shepherd.
Going to move that council adopt the rezoning for 100. Sorry, items 1 to 5.
As presented?
as presented.
Okay, I won't make you read them all out.
If I may offer a point of information, any amendments to be made to the bylaw prior to the second reading should be done before the readings take place, just procedurally. So if you're looking at any changes to those bylaws, those should be made before readings happen.
So in this particular case, staff brought forward the amendment for inclusion of the short-term rental provision. Is that something that we have to make as an amendment, or is that rolled into the recommendations that are here? It's only if we want to change from that.
The recommendation is for the bylaw as it's presented in this agenda package. So making a change to that prior to the readings would be the most appropriate course of action.
If we wanted to change it from what staff have presented to us tonight. Okay, so just to clarify, you were moving the recommendations as they exist?
I would add the amendment though for provision for the TUP for the.
Just some clarity here.
Oh.
So the amendment, recommendation 2 says as amended. Because the amendment that came in from staff was to add the short-term rental component to the
Okay.
amendment by
So just the recommendations as presented. then.
as presented. Okay, thank you. Did you second that for me, Councillor Inkster?
I will. I
Yep.
just to clarification, the STR provision is not part of this.
It is currently part of this.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for it then? Because thank you, Councillor Bell. Okay, any other discussion on? I guess I will ask, would council like to sever recommendation 2 and vote on the remainder of them as a block? Because it sounds like the short-term rental component might be a sticking point.
Chair?
Yeah.
I just, while you were talking to Councillor Shepherd, I asked the corporate officer if in fact we could pull that particular piece out. And because I'm much more comfortable if we pull that out and vote for that separately.
Okay.
If that's in fact what you're proposing.
That is what I'm proposing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we would be
Yeah.
voting on recommendations 1, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay, I can second that.
I have a seconder for
yeah,
them.
seconder,
So
sure.
okay, any discussion on recommendations 1, 3, 4, and 5? I will call the question then. All those in favor? And opposed? Councillor McLaughlin opposed. The motion's carried. Recommendation 2, the council gives second reading to zoning amendment bylaw 580-6 2023 for 5535 Shorncliffe Avenue as amended. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? This includes the STR component. Okay, so I will do that again. All those in favor? And those opposed? Councillors McLaughlin and Inkster opposed, motion's carried. Thank you. We're going to move on to 6.1B. Bylaw number 492-33, 2023 for 5535 Shorncliffe Avenue, being a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt official community plan bylaw number 492, 2010. And this is, can I have a motion for second reading, please? Moved by Councillor Rowe. Do I have a seconder? Seconded. Thank you. Any discussion on second reading of the official community plan amendment bylaw? I will call the question then. All those in favor? And opposed? Councillor McLaughlin opposed. That's carried. Thank you. So next up is 6.1C, bylaw number 580-06, 2023, being a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw number 580, 2022. And can I have a motion for second reading as amended? I believe, correct?
Correct. The reason that it says as amended is because it was amended after first reading and the amendment now is included in the version that's attached to this agenda
Okay,
with the short-term rental and the height variation. The other thing. The residential rental tenure.
okay. So as amended, Do I have a mover for second reading? Moved, seconded by Counselor Rowe. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Counselor McLaughlin opposed, motion's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, that's it for that item. Moving on to item 6.2A. Sewer service area extension for Telus Marina 5981 Seashell Inlet Road. Over to our corporate officer.
Thank you. So this is just an amendment to our sewer service area to extend the area to include one additional property, the Telus Marina development that came forward to council recently. So Division 5 of Part 7 of the Community Charter provides council with authority to expand a sewer service area. And as such, they will be subject to the sewer user fees bylaw and the parcel tax bylaw for sewer.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions? Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you through the chair. I'm just wondering if this particular development is a private club or open to the public? Thank you.
Don't think it's pertinent to the question that's being asked of us.
It is to me.
Okay. I don't know that staff are in a position to answer that for you at this meeting, but they can get you the answer offline. Counselor Inkster, did you have anything?
I think Councilor McLaughlin's asking the question because we're going to be extending a public sewer line to a building that may be a private business. Okay, that's why I think.
Thank you. I mean, at the end of the day, every house and business that we service is private. So, Councilor McLaughlin.
If I could clarify a
Yeah.
little bit, thank you. That's sort of right, Darren and Councilor Inkster. But I want to know if this project is in the public interest and if it's just a big private development for the elite. Frankly, I don't support it. It takes a lot of water. It takes our sewer system. It's part of we're supporting it with our tax dollars. And so now would be a good time to not go forward if that's the case. Thank you.
Okay, understood. The project would still have the option of building a septic system if they didn't connect to our sewer, so. I don't know, I know that they've spoken in the past about, being a launching off point for the children's camp. If they build the wilderness camp, that's a separate project. But they've also got the gathering space that they're going to make available to the public. Councillor Shepherd.
I believe when the application first came to council, they did mention the restaurants are public restaurants. So unless they're only attended by the elites, I'm not sure.
Which hasn't been mentioned so far. So Councillor McLaughlin.
Well, I guess we should ask planning and not speculate here ourselves.
Don't think it's relevant, but I'll see if planning would like to speak to whether they know if any component of this is, private facility or.
Building permits have been applied to based on development permit that was issued and considered by council for restaurant, marina, and related uses. Anticipated to be public.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Rowe.
I'll move recommendation 1, please.
Thank you. And I've got a seconder for that. Do I have any other discussion on the recommendation that's on the floor? I will call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Councillor McLaughlin, motion's carried. Moving on to item 6.2B, which is sewer local service area bylaw number 393-2023, bylaw to amend District of Seashell sewer local service area bylaw number 393-2001 to expand the sewer service area. This is for 3 readings. So a motion for first reading, please. Moved, seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin opposed. Motion's carried. All right, second reading of, lost my page. Second reading of sewer local service area bylaw number 393-3 2023. Second reading, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin, motion's carried. And third reading of sewer local service area bylaw number 393-3 2023. Motion for third reading. Do I have a seconder for third reading? Seconded. All those in favor? And opposed? Counselor McLaughlin, motion's carried. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 6.3A. I know that we have Mr. Nias with us tonight. I'm assuming that the reports speak for themselves, that this is just for adoption, but Mr. Nias, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Chairman Toth. Nothing more to add.
Okay, thank you very much. So council, we have a recommendation on page 84. Would somebody like to make that recommendation for me? Moved. And do I have a seconder? Seconded. Thank you. And this would be the council adopts building bylaw amendment bylaw 409-11/2023. All those in favor? That's carried. So we're going to move on to 6.3B, which is the bylaw itself. Building bylaw amendment number 409-11/2023, a bylaw to amend building bylaw number 409-2003. Motion for adoption. Moved. Seconded. Seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Did you have a comment on adoption?
Well, I just had a question that this is basically the standard. It's basically becomes the lowest common standard. That is
That is-
generally required, yeah.
That is correct, Councillor. The building code is the minimum life safety standard by which buildings are constructed in the province of British Columbia.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor McLaughlin. Thank you for catching me there. I'll call that again. All those in favor of adoption? And that's carried. Thank you. So moving on to item number 6.4A, which is animal control and licensing bylaw, fees and charges bylaw amendment, and bylaw notice enforcement implementation bylaw amendment. Again, I think the report speaks for itself. And we had the presentation previously. So council, did you want to make some recommendations tonight? Councillor Shepherd,
Recommend that council adopt items 1, 2, and 3
as presented.
as presented.
Thank you. And I've got a seconder for that. Any other discussion on the recommendations? All those in favor? Carried. So now we're going to move to 6.4B, which is bylaw number 611/2023, being a bylaw to establish animal control and licensing for animals for the District of Sechelt. And this is for adoption. Motion for adoption. Moved. Seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. 6.4C, bylaw number 575-8/2023, being a bylaw to establish or amend the fees and charges bylaw number 575/2019 for the District of Sechelt. So somebody to move adoption, please. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. And moving on to item number 6.4D, bylaw number 515-13/2023, being a bylaw to amend the District of Sechelt bylaw notice enforcement implementation bylaw number 515/2012. And this is also for adoption. Moved. Seconded. Any discussion on adoption? All those in favor? Carried. All right, next up, we have item 6.5A, which is amendments to the District of Sechelt business bylaw and the municipal ticket information bylaw, alignment of enforcement measures. And this is also up for adoption. Council, do you have any questions on the report or the bylaws in front of us tonight? If not, we have recommendations on page 105. Councillor Shepherd,
Move that council adopt items number 1 and 2 as presented.
thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconder. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Moving on to 6.5B, bylaw number 520-6/2023, being a bylaw to amend business licenses bylaw 520/2012. And a motion for adoption, please. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Next up is 6.5C, bylaw number 491-3/2023, being a bylaw to amend municipal ticket information bylaw number 491/2010. And motion for adoption. Moved, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, staff. Thank you, council. Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin, for catching me there, for not doing the discussion. That takes us to the end of bylaws. Next up, we have items, minutes of the previous council, committee and commission meetings. So first up is item 7.1, regular council meeting of June 7th for adoption. And I believe there's one amendment to make to that, at least. So corporate officer.
Thank you, Chair Top. It was brought to our attention that one point was missed on one of the councilor reports, actually your report from the June 7th, 2023 regular council meeting minutes. This is on page 123 of our agenda tonight. The last sentence of that portion of the councilor report mentions that not one person in BC has been infected by a needle with Hep BC or with HIV/AIDS. It needs to be amended to include accidental contact with a dirty needle. That was a piece that was missing from that statement.
Thank you for that. Councillors, any other amendments to make? Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, on page 112, under discussion, it says the third point, lead standards are being replaced by energy efficiency requirements in the BC building code. I did ask a question of our bylaw building inspection expert, and the two things are not the same. And so this kind of reads as though they are replaceable.
I believe it should say step code, right?
Well, also lead standards, I was talking about lead for neighborhood, which is designing for a neighborhood and designing for a house are not really the same thing. And that was my point. So I would just like to strike this from the actual.
Strike that entire bullet.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Was there anything else?
And the last bullet, if you could say, for I don't agree that the development is within the urban containment boundary entirely. And I've had some emails go back and forth. So I would like the minutes to reflect that, part of the development is located within the urban containment boundary.
Okay, so the development is
Then it-
partially located.
Yeah, instead of saying all of it is.
Okay. Thank you. And that's on page 112, the final bullet point
Yes.
on 5.1. Councillor Shepherd.
Should we not refer that issue to staff or ask staff's opinion of that? Is it?
Well,
I'm gonna leave it for the moment. Yeah, was there any other amendments to make to the minutes? Okay, Councillor Inkster.
Okay, so you're going to leave that, and what's going to happen then with that information?
Well, if the development is partially located within the urban containment boundary, that'll be accurate.
Okay, but we don't know that.
Okay. Director Allen, do you happen to know?
Thank you, Chair Toth. The official community plan displays the urban containment boundary and describes it in two different fashions. So it says the urban containment boundary as a primary settlement or primary containment, secondary containment. That's earlier in the OCP. On Schedule C1, which is the land use designation map that we primarily use, shows us the entire of the property within the urban containment boundary. And that was the map I was referring to at previous council meeting when described that. That said, it's in the secondary component of the urban containment boundary. So albeit subjective, but when I'm looking at Schedule C1, the primary land use designation map, it is shown highlighted in blue border.
right, if I could just respond to that. The big lot to the west is not in the urban containment, but it is part of the overall development and part of the conceptual master plan. So that's why when I raised the question, I was concerned that we were generalizing. And so I thought if we just said partial, it would be more fair.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I may, to clarify, I'm not intending on debating or attempting to prove Councillor McLaughlin incorrect. If I was in front of a judge and the judge asked me if this property is in the urban containment boundary, I would say yes. But I understanding that there's a rural resource piece of this property that we've been hesitant to support. So
Okay,
long-winded way of saying
partially or, okay. Okay. With those amendments, anything else council? It is a lot of minutes for sure.
Oh,
Yep.
I had a comment on page 123 on my comments. It said, suggested use of statistical analysis data. You had SADS, SADS, and actually it is SAS, which is a statistical analysis system package. So I guess I wasn't enunciating it clearly.
Okay.
So
So that
SAS, please. Thank you.
SAS, okay,
Mhm.
thank you. Okay. And with that, then a motion to adopt as amended. Moved, seconded, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. Item number 7.2, being the minutes of the regular council meeting for Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. Council, any corrections or clarifications necessary in this one? Councilor McLaughlin?
Clarification, page 137. Again, my comments, saying urged public donations of clothing to local charity organizations. Yes, I was referring, I think, to the Salvation Army, which supports local jobs. And some of the donation places actually go off coast. So I was approached by someone who's employed taking in these items and was concerned that their job was going to disappear because it was going off coast. So that if you could just clarify that somehow to say maybe check my recording. But I thought I made it clearer than that. Thank you.
Local Salvation Armies, perhaps? Would that be a,
I think that's what I said, but I
Okay.
want to be accurate. Thank you.
Okay. thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, council? If not, I'll look for a motion to adopt with that one amendment. Moved. Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. So item 7.3, minutes of the committee of the whole meeting for Wednesday, May 31st, 2023. Item 7.3, this is for receipt. Council, any corrections or clarifications to be made here? If not, I'll look for a motion to receive. Moved, seconded, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. So that takes us to the end of item 7. And is there any business arising from the minutes? Councillor Bell. Microphone.
Thank you. I believe to the chair, I believe from these minutes, the fire department agreed to meet with council to discuss interface fires at future committee of the whole. Can we describe that can happen at some point in time?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anything else, Councillor McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you through the chair. I'm wondering if regarding the trails, if development will pay for additional sewers, sewage treatment, water treatment, et cetera.
Through DCCs?
Through
and-
DCCs, yeah.
I mean, that is the intention of DCCs, so. Yeah. I mean, was there anything further to the DCC component?
Well,
or-
I mean, I guess the intention is that development should pay for its way.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if the DCCs really cover that by any means, and we were going to review our DCCs.
Mhm.
But if I could just get some comment on that so that the public has a little more information on that, please. Thank you.
Director Allen?
Sure, thank you. Should that development proceed, they'll be responsible for all on-site servicing, of course, adjacent offsites where relevant and agreed upon through servicing agreement, contribution of development cost charges, contribution of community amenity contributions, and other on and offsite contributions. There's a long road ahead on that project for it to come to fruition. First step is referral to SCRD and Sechelt Nation. This gauge interest in this proposed reservoir. That may take some time, but should the development ever occur, there would be significant upfront costs and contributions from the applicant to develop not just their site, but the Acorn Road entrance in and so forth.
Just to follow up on that real quick, given that it is currently in the pipeline, where does it land with us reviewing our DCCs? Will it be paying old DCC rates, or will it be paying new DCC rates, or will it depend on when it reaches a certain milestone within their timeline?
Right. Ongoing applications, and let's most likely use preliminary layer review, like the PLR stage, receive a 1 year reprieve for the new DCC rates. But this project is still at the very, very early stages of rezoning, let alone subdivision. I propose or pardon me, I suggest it's most likely they'd be in the new DCC bylaw that gets wrapped up in a year or two. That would be the expectation.
Thank you. Is there anything else business arising from the minutes? Councilor McLaughlin?
I'm sorry, also related to that, I wonder if there's a latecomers agreement for the Wakefield lift station with regards to that development. Thank you.
No, there is not a latecomers agreement respecting that development. Thank you.
I believe the question came up previously. Latecomer agreements only apply to private development. They can't apply to municipal. I'm getting a whole lot of head nodding up there. So,
That's correct.
thank you. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to reports from councillors. And let's start with Councillor Rowe to get her out of the way.
Those are kind words. Thank you, Councillor Todd. Well, mostly I've been sick. But last week in the mayor's absence, I did meet with a couple members of the Coalition of Childcare Advocates of BC, which we'll talk about in correspondence, and then followed up by a joint childcare meeting. But that was about the extent of my out of the house activities in the last couple of weeks. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. We'll start down at that end of the table with Councillor Bell.
Councillor Bell. So I was in Ottawa for a week and attended some federal government training, which was excellent, and some town halls with the PM. I attended the Thriving Communities Social Planning Table Council meeting yesterday. And basically, just to give people a little bit what that is, it's a multi-service, which is council committed to service delivery that strengthens our community with the goals of inclusive, connected, thriving communities free of poverty. So there's a good group, a very diverse group in terms of who's on the committee. We have our nonprofits, Vancouver Coastal Health, CAT, Community Futures. So there's a very wide, as I say, diverse group of people that are looking at this particular issue. And we'll continue to look at terms of reference as we move forward with that. I sat in for Councillor Rowe and as chair for our community safety meeting, and it was a great meeting, although we didn't proceed with some of the major areas, such as looking at our terms of reference, because we want to wait to our distinguished chair returns. We did meet one gentleman, if I can pronounce his name, Jean, oh gosh, I'm going to forget his last name, De Beer. And he is someone that is on the coast and works as a provincial advocate, works with the different people in our shelters. He goes to Arrowhead and so on. And his goal is to help people that want to be helped with their finances. And so he's a tremendous guy to have access to, and very, very keen at being a part of our monthly meetings for the community safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shepherd.
I attended the East Porpoise Bay monthly meeting last week. I attended the dedication of the new ramp at Rosecliff Center on Shorncliffe, which is a very moving ceremony, seeing the challenges that people with various disabilities have and experience around town. So I learned a lot. And last night was the meeting of SCAF, the umbrella of all of the community associations in the district. So they're vigorous conversation. I think Councillor Inkster would agree. And on Friday will be Scredo's AGM. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor McLaughlin.
Let's see, week, on Tuesday, June 13th, I attended the Island Coastal Intercommunity Transportation Study Group, which was at Seaside Center. Very interesting, talking about, you know, transportation within Seashelt and the RD, but also nearby communities. I attended the BC Ferries meeting on Saturday with Darren and a lot of other people, with a lot of BC Ferry staff there, face to face, real BC Ferries people. And that was really insightful. But, you know, a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of complaining, but there's issues, right? And we just can't seem to get beyond the solutions, but hopefully, I mean, it was an eye opener. So I learned about that. And then also I was at SCAF last night with Darren and Adam. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Inkster.
Thank you. It's been busy in a couple of, mainly transportation in the last few days. I'll just go backwards. SCAF was interesting last night. I thought it was going to only be myself and Councillor Shepherd from council, but we had 3 of us. I think SCAF was concerned that not enough of us were going, so I hope they're satisfied with the 3 that went. Although they should probably change the name to the Shepherds Community Association Forum, but based on some of the things that we talked about last night. But going forward, there's a number of issues they presented to us. They'll be sending council some information and or presenting to council some information. So they'll come and speak to us. I think they're going to be making a application to present in the next week or so, going through the system we have in place, just to let council know on a couple of issues they want to present. And they also just passed on some information for us to check on some stuff with staff. And in one case, I've checked on one thing for the group. Good group, very involved in the community, and have some concerns. It's good that we have that outreach into our community. I know that council agrees with that. The other issue I wanted to bring up is the transportation issue that was mentioned by Councillor McLaughlin. There's a number of issues with transportation on the coast that this council has taken big interest in. Highways is always an issue, whether they have a second one or whether we need to make improvements to our existing one, because Seashelt is right in the middle of the Sunshine Coast. So the highway comes through here, and a large part of our community is based on the highway and accesses it. So we should pay real strong attention to that. I made sure I was at that one because the ferries issue, and I'm very clear about needing another ferry. I keep constantly talking about that, and I'll keep talking about that. But one thing that is another thing that's important to this council is a future ferry it's going to be a lot of work to get there. They're very expensive, but we need one. It will come. Is the pedestrian access issue at Langdale. We also have got the Ferry Advisory Committee is on top of the bathrooms issue on the other side that a number of us have heard about. We probably get complaints about it, and they made some improvements over there, but they need to do more improvements. I think council's heard probably through the community about not enough bathrooms at Horseshoe Bay for people, not enough pet areas at Horseshoe Bay after a long trip. So they've made some improvements, but we need to keep on that. And I think council I'll always make sure that council is really aware of the ferry issue because it's a big link for this community. The pedestrian issue, I've forwarded some information to Councillor Bell to look into on some funding that needed to go to a pedestrian, I think an overhead walkway to get pedestrians off the ramp. If they could get pedestrians off the ramp, traffic could go on and off easier. So that's a really key component that BC Ferries didn't adhere to, but some federal money that they received. I'm also letting council know that I'll be forwarding the FAC minutes to this council when I get them. When they're a public document, they'll get them. Maybe they'll come into an agenda and or just come to council. And there's a performance review document. I'm not exactly sure of the exact wording that it's quite a big document that I'll send through to council, and perhaps we will bite into it because it's something that we need to talk about with their performance as a council and send information to BC Ferries. The last thing I'm going to mention is I've been quite involved in a number of sports as an organizer and or as a parent with kids in sports. And we need to really make sure that our fields, that we take care of our fields. Because if we don't take care of our fields, then we'll have sand fields and that costs much more money and there'll still be the same amount of demand for the use. So as a council, we need to keep our eyes on that one and make sure we get our fields back up to what they were about 5 years ago. Water's an issue, but we just need to make sure we properly fund them, because if we don't, the user groups will be sending us lots of emails, and that's a group we've never heard from before. So that's a lot of families, and that's a little more scary. So I just wanted to let council know that we need to look after our fields. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Inkster. Yeah, and I know that, you know, the SCRD recently closed Cliff Gilker Sports Field due to the condition of the field until they can rejuvenate it and possibly invest in a non-potable irrigation system there. So it's going to be closed for, I think, at least the next year, which is quite unfortunate. A couple things to report on. Most of council attended the Seashell Nation inaugural ceremony up at the Longhouse. It was fantastic to be in there. I haven't been in there in a number of years. I unfortunately had to leave to catch a ferry before they got to the actual inaugural part, but it was quite an honor to be there for Councillor Philip Paul to receive a traditional name, which is they make a big deal out of it, and so they rightfully should. And it was quite the honor to be there. I'm not going to try and pronounce it because I'll probably get it wrong. Walk. Yeah. Anyways, I said I wasn't going to try and pronounce it. So otherwise, you know, I did mention that today is Indigenous Peoples Day, bookending, you know, between now and July 1st, Canada Day. Planning is well underway for Canada Day. But between now and then, a lot of great opportunities to learn about the history and the culture, not only of the Shishalt Nation, but other nations across Canada. There's going to be some newspaper advertising coming out this week. There's more information for both Canada Day and this week of events on the District of Sechelt website, as well as parade information at secheltdowntown.com. Otherwise quiet, but hopefully I'll have more to report on next week. So in terms of the SCRD, Councillor Inkster, would you like to say anything about the SCRD?
Yeah, just a couple of things. First of all, just start. Thanks for chairing this extensive agenda meeting, Councillor Todd. I was going to say that aren't you glad there wasn't water discussed? But we do talk about quite a bit of water at this table too. But I just wanted to mention a couple of things. The regional district, 2 issues that came before the Electoral Services Committee last week is just a heads up to this council that knows about it, but they're difficult issues. One is Hopkins Dock. That was some community pushback, making sure that they didn't look at any other option but fixing it. So there's a lot of community push on that one, just to let this council know that watch what you do with your assets. Heads up. And also to Cooper's Corner, that issue, just to let this group also know is, once again, watch what you do with your assets and how you make your future plans in reference to those assets, because you'll get a lot of community pushback. And those are 2 big issues that I'm sure this council is familiar with. If they have any questions, they can ask myself or Councillor Toth, because the dock's almost probably $500,000 just to start, and the hall we know it's up above 4. And that's a lot of money for one area. So if you have any questions, just ask myself or Councillor Toth, but they're big issues. Thanks.
Thank you for that. I mean, the District of Sechelt doesn't participate in the park service, so we're not going to be paying for a new hall wherever it's built, but the 5 electoral areas do pay into it. So everybody from Pender Harbor all the way to West Howe Sound Islands will be paying for whatever gets built, whether it's at Cooper's or Connor. I did actually attend the Connor Park open house this afternoon just to touch base and see how it was. And there was a good crowd. There's probably 25, 30 people there while I was there just for the half hour. Some positive feedback, you know, obviously some community disappointment. There was a group set up not too far away taking signatures for a petition to stop the hall at Connor Park. They're at over 900 names now, I think. So it is it's a big deal in that community. And yeah. So that's that. Tomorrow, I'm not going to be at the committee of the whole meeting tomorrow at 9:30, but there is going to be a water update with hopefully some good news about turning on the pumps at Church Road. Tests are done, the system's ready, paperwork's all with the province. When I was at Connor Park, the CAO, Dean McKinley, was on a phone call with the province following up on that final piece of paper that we need. So hopefully there will be some good news tomorrow. And I think I'm just going to leave it at that. Next up, we have 11.1 in the agenda, which is capital project updates, engineering and operations. And did you have anything that you wanted to highlight tonight, Ms. Lee?
Thank you. No, I don't have anything to present, but here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Operations Center, top of mind, top of the list, looking great. Is there a plan for a tour or some sort of public open house for that facility before it gets all mucked up with our ops staff?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I believe there is plans for an event. I'm not sure the details of it off the top of my head, but I can certainly get back to you with what's planned for that.
Thank you. Council, any other questions about the engineering and operations capital project update? Yes, very good report. Lots of detail. Thank you so much. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to 11.2 council correspondence. We've got two items, both are labeled for action. Item number 1, which is an email from Pivot, inviting a representative of Sechelt Council to participate in their community forum. And I'm wondering if we've got anybody on council that wants to volunteer to participate in that forum. Recognizing that there may be a conflict because of UBCM. They don't have dates in their letter. I don't know if they've published their dates yet. Councillor Bell?
As far as I understand, I think I saw some correspondence come through where they were alerted that we would be at UBCM and they might change the date, but they haven't decided to.
Okay.
So,
yeah. But in the meantime, is there anybody that wants to volunteer to participate in that on behalf of Sechelt Council? Councillor Bell, you're volunteering? Okay, so I guess we just have a motion to appoint Councillor Bell as a representative of Sechelt Council to the community forum panel. Okay, I'll move that. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded, thank you very much. All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. And then item number 2, UBCM childcare resolution. Councillor Rowe, I think you know more about this than I, so I'm going to look to you.
Yeah, so this group that is advocating for this is the group that the Coalition of Childcare Advocacy of BC that brought in the $10 a day daycare. They've been around for 40 years or so, they're pretty much subject matter experts on the issue, I think. And this resolution is essentially what they're looking for us to support, which other communities have done. I'm in support of supporting this resolution. What they're trying to do is there's lots of communities that are having issues once they sort of receive the grant for a daycare project, the staff time and resources to actually make it happen. And so that's one of the things that they would like to see the provincial government fund. But the other thing they're talking about is why is everyone having to go out and design their own facilities, if you will? They want to look at things more as a group, not necessarily have plug and play models, but there's lots of evidence about sort of best practices, et cetera, when it comes to building daycares. And they should be able to, the province should be able to make it easier for these projects to be implemented. So that's essentially what they're looking for. The other piece that we talked about was that they were talking about that I'm kind of surprised wasn't part of this is advocating to the province to implement a wage grid for early childhood educators, which other provinces have done. We're way behind the curve on this one because essentially that is a lot of the issue around people going into the field. but I didn't get an answer on more information on where that stands. So I think it could be something that, you know, if we get a minister meeting that we can bring to that meeting, but it's not part of this resolution at this time. So long story short is I would like to make a motion that we support this resolution as displayed in the email.
Okay. And I have a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Inkster. Do we have any other discussion on this? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And so Councillor Rowe, that's pretty much it for the moment, but there may be more to come as we get closer to UBCM.
Right. Yeah, and if
Okay.
there is, I'll bring it back.
Okay, thank you very much. So that concludes our correspondence. So with that, item number 12, I'll turn to our acting CAO and ask if there are any emergency items.
Why, thank you. There are no emergency items.
Thank you very much. And so with that, I ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned.